While all living things in one way or another both transmit or emit energy and of course can receive it, the human body is quite exceptional in its ability to send messages and receive them. As mentioned, electrical signals from neurons, but also neurotransmitters or hormones released by cells communicate with specific cells that have, in many cases, very specific receptors. When a cell receives a signal, whether it's an electrical signal from a neuron or a chemical messenger which crosses a small gap between two communicating cells, it causes the cell to increase its activity or to produce things. In some cases it may be to produce certain proteins, it may be to make more energy, it may be to affect the release of other hormones. A good example of how messengers work is moving a muscle. If you wanted to flex your elbow or bend your elbow, a thought would begin in the brain, an area called the motor cortex, sending electrical signals, communicating through electricity, all the way down through the brain and spinal cord, before exiting out of the neck, coming to a point where it will cross a gap, a small gap between the nerve and the muscle, causing this muscle then to release calcium. Calcium then causing the muscle to contract. So our body is constantly sending and receiving trillions of messages at any given moment. When you're ready, move to the next slide. You, of course, are very familiar with many of the messages. Things such as pain is an obvious message being sent from an area which has been either physically or chemically irritated, relayed to the brain to tell your body where you hurt. Hunger is another example of something that you're quite usually aware of. Thirst, feeling of being cold or feeling hot. But then there are ones that are much more subtle. Changes in the tension of your muscles. Sometimes you just don't become aware of it until they actually cause pain. Changes in your breathing rate. Changes in your heart rate. You might wonder, why is it important to tune in to these subtle messages? One of the reasons is that they can be signs of stress. Sometimes our body begins to register stress before we become consciously aware of it. It could be also that there's something going on in our environment that our body is perceiving as dangerous. It's been said that some animals can sense an impending earthquake long before it strikes. In the well-known tsunami, which hit parts of Southeast Asia a few years ago, it was known that the day before that earthquake, many animals started heading up to higher ground. And those who survived the tsunami followed these large animals. So if these animals have the ability to detect danger or significant catastrophes, we should be able to as well. When you're ready, move to the next slide. So if we've learned through our evolution to tune things out, we should be able to tune back into them. Part of the process of tuning things out happened naturally, as we started to tame our local environment through building shelters and protecting ourselves through the use of tools or weapons. We've actually created much more safety in our lives. As we became less worried and less concerned about weather, for example, we started to become less sensitive to the changes. With less concern about things preying on us because of the safety of our shelters, we also became less aware of those things that may still prey upon us. But like a muscle, we can learn to become more tuned into these very subtle messages. And meditation is an excellent way to get in touch with that. When you're ready, move to the next slide. We're now going to begin with a 5-minute meditation for tuning in to subtle messages or subtle sensations. Begin by sitting in an upright position, an upright, dignified position. Eyes closed, feet flat on the floor, and your hands in a symmetrical position. At the sound of the bell, we'll begin. Begin by tuning in to everything that you can feel, the physical sensations. Begin to take note of the temperature of the air. Notice the surface on which you're sitting. Where on your body does it make more contact, or where is there more pressure? Notice the sensation of clothing on your body. In some places it may feel tight, other areas it may feel loose. Begin to also bring in everything that you can hear. Perhaps you can hear people beside you, offices next to you. Maybe you hear the sound of traffic, the sound of voices. Begin to notice if there is a certain smell that you become aware of. Maybe it's a familiar smell. Maybe a smell in your office or whatever environment you're in right now. Maybe it's the smell of coffee or tea. Begin to bring into your field of awareness any tastes that you might have in your mouth. Perhaps, again, it's the taste of something you just recently drank or something you recently ate. Maybe it's the taste of toothpaste. Just see if you can notice anything registering in your mouth. Now I'd like you to move into a deeper state of meditation, and we're going to see if you can detect more subtle messages. See if now you can scan your body and notice any areas of increased muscle tension. Begin to notice the rate of your breath. Also notice the quality of each breath. Some breaths come easily, some are more strained. Place your hand over your heart, just near your sternum. See if you can feel the beating of your heart. If it's difficult to feel there, you might try to feel it on the side of your neck where you'd feel your pulse. Begin also to pay attention to the thoughts of your chattering mind, your subconscious mind. Is there a familiar pattern? Does your subconscious mind chatter away about future events? Does it chatter away about past events? Begin to move back out to physical sensations. Things again such as the chair that you're sitting on, the temperature of the air, that which you can hear and taste and smell. At the sound of the bell, this will conclude our 5-minute meditation. I hope you've enjoyed that meditation about tuning into subtle sensations. And know that's an important thing to do, to become aware of how your body is reacting, perhaps to outside environmental changes, or perhaps to internal thoughts, worries, concerns, regrets. I look forward to connecting again with you tomorrow.